suddenly alive.
Right.
And you aren't trying to do this in some distant, uneducated province where rumors are hard to verify. You are attempting to spark this movement in the exact same city where he was publicly tortured and killed just weeks prior.
Yeah, the geography alone is wild.
I mean, the authorities who ordered his death are still in power. The executioners are still on duty. The grave where he was buried is literally a short walk away.
It's an easily viable claim.
Exactly. To make a claim like a geographic location where you're found instantly checked is an incredibly dangerous starting point for historical event.
Physical geography and the power structures are all, sitting right there to easily correct the movement.
Okay, let's unpack this. That unbelievable tension making an impossible claim in the very place where anyone could supposedly prove it wrong, that is the starting point for our deep dive today. So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
We are taking you on a purely analytical, historical journey into what is undoubtedly one of the most debated claims in human history, the resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth.
But before we really dig into the timeline, we have to set some firm ground rules.
Good idea.
Our mission today is not logical. We are wearing our historian hats. We are going to look at the historical arguments, the cultural context of the first century, logical deductions surrounding the resurrection.
Right, we remaining completely partial.
Exactly. This isn't about endorsing a religious viewpoint. It's about exploring the secular records, the psychology of the early movement, and rigorous arguments presented by scholars and skeptics alike. We are dissecting the anatomy of claim itself.
Well, let's get right into the stakes here because they are astronomically high. If you look at a text written by the Apostle Paul, specifically 1 Corinthians 15:3, he essentially writes that if the resurrection didn't physically happen, then the entire Christian faith is completely, to use his word, useless.
Yeah, that's a bold statement.
Right. The religion itself admits that its entire philosophical and moral framework hinges on this single historical event.
Which is incredibly rare for a world religion.
Right.
I mean, if you analyze other major historical religious figures, Buddha, Muhammad, Confucius, the foundational narratives of their movements do not hinge on a physical resurrection.
They just don't.
No. Their followers openly acknowledge that they lived, they taught, they died, and their bodies stayed in the grave. The enduring legacy was supposed to be in their teachings.
Right.
But the earliest followers of Jesus made a fundamentally different, exceptionally radical claim. They staked everything on the assertion that he was publicly crucified, buried, and then physically walked out of a tomb.
And I want to pause on that 1 Corinthians text for a second, because a skeptic might say, well, Paul wrote that decades later, it's easy for legends to grow over 50 or 100 years.
Sure, that's a common assumption.
But historians don't actually view that specific text as a late legend, do they?
No, they don't. And this is where the textual history gets really fascinating. Critical scholars, including secular and atheist historians, have analyzed the structure of 1 Corinthians 15. The verses where Paul lists the people who saw the resurrected Jesus are structured as an early creed. In the original language, it has this rhythmic oral tradition cadence.
Like a chant or a poem to help people memorize it.
Exactly. And based on linguistic analysis and historical dating, scholars widely agree that Paul received this creed incredibly early. We are talking about a finalized statement of belief that dates back to within 3 to 5 years of the actual crucifixion.
Wait, really? 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
That completely shatters the idea that this was some myth that evolved over centuries, like the legends of Hercules or King Arthur.
Precisely. Myths usually require generations to form, specifically so the original eyewitnesses die off and can't contradict the new fantastical stories. But this creed was circulating in Jerusalem, while the people who supposedly saw it, the people who actively executed him, were still walking the streets.
Which brings us back to the glaring geographical problem. The Jewish and Roman authorities desperately wanted to crush this disruptive movement.
Oh, absolutely.
And the absolute easiest way to do that, the fatal blow to Christianity before it even took a breath, would have been to simply walk over to the tomb, pull out the body, and parade it through the streets of Jerusalem. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the body, go home.
Right. It's the ultimate trump card.
Yeah.
But they never played it.
Because they couldn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The historical consensus from across the spectrum that the authorities didn't produce a body because they couldn't.
Okay, let's unpack this. So they couldn't produce a corpse. That forces us to look at what they actually did find. They found an empty tomb.
Right.
Now let's look at the specific historical claims about that empty tomb. Because if I'm inventing hope in the ancient world, I'm going to story to be as credible and airtight as possible. But the earliest texts that the very first people to discover the empty tomb were women.
And to understand why that detail is so explosive, we have to understand the patriarchal legal mechanisms of first-century Judea.
Right, because it was a very different world.
Entirely. In that era, the testimony of women was highly marginalized. If you read first-century rabbinic texts or the historian Josephus, they explicitly state the testimony of women was generally not admissible in a court of law. They were culturally viewed as unreliable witnesses.
So if you are a group of male disciples sitting around a table trying to invent hoax to sell to a deeply patriarchal society, this is like the worst possible PR strategy.
Exactly. Historians analyze texts using something called the criterion of embarrassment.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Yeah, it basically says if a historical account includes details that are awkward, culturally damaging, or detrimental to the author's cause, it is highly likely to be true.
Because why would you invent something that hurts your own argument?
Right. If they were making it up, they would have logically written the story so that the respected male leaders like Peter or John were the ones who heroically discovered the empty tomb and brilliantly deduced the resurrection.
You don't deliberately weaken your own fake story. The only logical reason you write that women found the tomb first is if you are stubbornly committed to reporting what actually happened, regardless of the cultural embarrassment.
Precisely. And we also have to look at how the hostile authorities reacted to this empty tomb claim.
Oh, this is fascinating.
They didn't put out a decree saying, ignore the rumors, his body is still rotting in the grave.
Yeah.
Their official response, which is recorded in the historical texts, was to claim that the disciples snuck in and stole the body.
Which is such a massive tactical error on their part.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, by officially claiming the body was stolen, the enemies of the movement were accidentally confirming the foundational premise. The tomb was empty.
It's like saying, I didn't steal your car, my cousin stole it. You're admitting the car is gone.
Exactly. Both sides completely agreed the body was missing. They just violently disagreed on how it went missing.
It's an implicit admission of the facts on the ground. However, as any good historical investigator will point out, an empty tomb does not automatically equal a supernatural resurrection.
Oh.
A missing corpse is just a missing corpse.
Completely agree. Let's be rational about this. If the body wasn't there and the Romans didn't move it, we have to look at the alternative secular explanations.
Okay, let's go through them.
Let's start with the most obvious one. What if Jesus just didn't die on the cross? People survive crazy trauma. Maybe he passed out from the pain, the Romans mistakenly thought he was dead, and he woke up a few days later in the cool, damp tomb.
It's a common theory, often called the swoon theory. On the surface, if you are detached from the historical realities of the ancient world, it sounds plausible.
Sure.
But when you apply medical science and historical knowledge to what a Roman crucifixion actually entailed, the mechanism of survival becomes physically impossible.
Unpack the mechanics of that for us, because the Romans weren't just casually hanging people up.
No, the Romans were professional executioners. Death was guaranteed. First, there was the scourging.
Which sounds brutal just on its own.
It was horrific. The victim was whipped with a flagrum, a whip braided with shards of bone and lead. This stripped the flesh down to the muscle, often exposing veins and organs, inducing severe hypovolemic shock from blood loss.
So he's already in critical condition before the crucifixion even begins.
Exactly. Many die before the cross, and iron spikes are driven to the wrists and the feet. But crucifixion wasn't a death by bleeding, it was death by asphyxiation.
Wait, suffocation?
Yeah. Breathe out, the victim had to put up on the nailed feet, scraping their torn against the rope, just to get eventual resurrection sets in. They can no longer push up. Their followers openly
and the historians say
acknowledge that they lived,
spear into his
they
side,
taught, they
confirmed
died,
death, bringing
and their
out
body,
flow, blood, and water.
which is a crucial medical detail. Modern cardiologists have analyzed that specific description and concluded that the spear pierced the pericardium.
That's the sac around the heart, right?
Yes, it fills with watery fluid when a person has extreme physical stress and oxidation. It's called a pericardial effusion. The Romans didn't have medical degrees, but they knew a dead body when they saw one.
Okay, let's unpack this. So if a guy survives the scourging, the asphyxiation, and the spear thrust, wakes up 3 days later in a sealed tomb without medical care, food, or water, manages to unwrap himself from heavy burial linens, pushes a boulder weighing thousands of pounds out of a trench, and then fights off an armed Roman guard.
He doesn't walk into a room looking like the divine conqueror of death.
He looks like a man in desperate need of an intensive care unit.
Exactly. He looks like he barely survived a horror movie. That wouldn't inspire a religion of ultimate victory. It would inspire people to call a doctor.
Right. Okay, so the swoon theory requires ignoring basic biology. Let's look at the authorities' own alibi. The disciple stole the body. Grave robbing was incredibly common in the ancient world. Why couldn't a few guys just sneak in at night and take him?
Because we have to look at the specific security measures to take this particular tomb. The historical record indicates a custodio was stationed there, a unit of Roman guards.
But couldn't they have just been asleep? The authorities even claimed the guards were sleeping. Disciples snuck by.
That claim actually highlights the absurdity of the theory. Roman guard units were elite, highly disciplined military personnel. They worked in shifts.
Right. They weren't just mall cops.
Not at all. The penalty in the Roman military for falling asleep on watch or allowing a prisoner to escape was often a horrific execution for the guards involved. The idea that an entire unit of elite soldiers fell deeply asleep at the exact same time is highly improbable.
And even if they did, rolling away a matchlock is really a operation.
Exactly. You are talking about a stone that weighed upwards of a seated in a grooved track. It would require several men to move it, creating a massive amount of noise.
So the stolen body theory requires us to believe that a ragtag group of terrified, traumatized fishermen managed to outsmart an elite military unit, heave a giant boulder out of a trench, and sneak off with a corpse without waking a single soldier.
It's just not realistic. And let's look at the psychology of the disciples in that scenario. If they stole the body, they know the resurrection is a lie.
Right. They personally orchestrated the hoax.
Why would they then spend the rest of their lives embracing poverty, torture, and eventually execution for a movement they knew they fabricated?
Nobody willingly gets beaten to a pulp and crucified for a lie they invented.
That is the breaking point for the stolen body theory. The human survival instinct is too strong, which brings skeptics to a third, much more sophisticated explanation. Psychology. If they didn't steal the body and Jesus didn't survive the cross, maybe it was all in their heads.
The hallucination theory. And to be fair, grief hallucinations are a clinically recognized phenomenon. People who are mourning a severe loss often report hearing their loved one's voice or catching a glimpse of them in a crowd.
Yeah, the brain is powerful. It projects what it desperately wants to see.
Right.
That's entirely true. Bereavement visions are a documented clinical reality. But we have to look at the specific mechanism of how hallucinations work. A hallucination is a strictly individual, internal event.
Like a dream.
Exactly. It is a projection of a person's individual brain chemistry. I cannot invite you to participate in my hallucination any more than I can invite you to share my dream.
But the historical claims aren't just about Peter sitting alone in a dark room having a fleeting vision.
No. The early creeds and texts claim that Jesus appeared to multiple groups of people in different locations, engaging in multisensory interactions, eating with them, talking with them, letting them touch him. Furthermore, the texts claim he appeared to over 500 people at the exact same time.
And 500 people cannot share the exact same hallucination.
Clinically speaking, the psychological odds of 500 different brains spontaneously generating the exact same complex, interactive, multisensory hallucination at the exact same moment are virtually zero.
Wow.
It contradicts everything modern psychiatry understands about human neurology.
Yeah.
Furthermore, there's a cultural barrier.
What do you mean?
First-century Jews did not believe in a dying and rising Messiah, nor did they believe in an individual resurrecting in the middle of human history. Their theology taught a general resurrection of everyone at the end of the world.
Oh, I see. So they weren't even neurologically or culturally primed to hallucinate this specific event. They weren't expecting it at all.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. If the medical reality of crucifixion destroys the swoon theory, logistics and psychology destroy the stolen body theory, and clinical psychiatry dismantles the mass hallucination theory, we have to look at the humans involved. What actually happened to these people?
We have to analyze the profound psychological transformation of the early followers. The before and after contrast is staggering.
The before picture is incredibly bleak. I mean, when Jesus was arrested, his followers scattered, they were cowards. Peter famously denied even knowing Jesus to a servant girl just to save his own skin.
Yep.
After the crucifixion, they were hiding in a locked room, terrified the Roman soldiers were coming to drag them to crosses of their own.
And then Almost overnight, we witness a psychological paradigm shift that defies easy historical explanation.
Right.
These exact same cowering men unlocked the doors, walked directly into the public squares of Jerusalem, where the men who executed their leader are still patrolling, and they begin fearlessly proclaiming that he is alive.
And they face horrific consequences for it. They weren't getting rich off this claim. They faced public beatings, they were thrown into prisons, and nearly all of the original core group were eventually tortured and executed specifically for refusing to recant this belief.
Which forms the bedrock of the historical martyrdom argument. It is absolutely true that throughout history, people have willingly died for lies. Cult members die for false beliefs. Extremists die for twisted ideologies.
Sadly, yes.
But there is a crucial distinction. They only die for those lies if they genuinely believe they are true.
That's the key. You might die for a delusion you've been brainwashed into believing, but you will not die for a lie that you personally orchestrated. The moment the Roman guards bring out the torture racks, that is the exact moment you say, okay, stop, it was a prank. We hid the body in a cave down the road.
Right. Their willingness to endure torture doesn't categorically prove that a supernatural resurrection occurred.
Yeah.
However, it proves beyond a shadow of a psychological doubt that these men genuinely believed they had physically interacted with the resurrected Christ.
They weren't faking it?
They were not con artists running a scam. Whatever they experienced, it was profound enough to override their deepest, most primal survival instincts.
I hear all of this, but a skeptic listening right now could still raise a very valid red flag. They could say, look, everything we are discussing, the empty tomb, the 500 witnesses, the bravery of the disciples, we are pulling this largely from Christian texts. Of course, the Christian documents are going to say Christianity is true.
Sure, that's a fair point.
So do we have an actual portrayal outside of the Bible? What does the secular record say?
It's a vital question. And the answer is yes. We have extra-biblical, entirely secular from the ancient anchors in Bible history. We can look at major historical figures, the Roman Tacitus and Jewish historian Josephus.
Let's start with Tacitus, because he had absolutely no interest in making Christianity look good. To him, they were a bizarre, annoying cult.
Precisely. This was a hostile source writing in the early 2nd century. Yet, in his annals, he specifically writes about the Christians and confirms on the official that their crucifixion during the various at the hands of the government.
Execution?
Yes. Tacitus confirms the execution is a historical fact, and he notes that this mischievous superstition broke out not just in Judea, but all the way to Rome.
But what about Josephus? Is any historian worth their salt going to immediately point out his writings were tampered with? There's that famous passage, the Testimonium Flavianum, where Josephus supposedly calls Jesus the Messiah. But scholars know Christian monks in the Middle Ages added parts to that. Doesn't that invalidate him as a source?
You're entirely right to bring up the interpolations. An example of why rigorous historical method is necessary. Yes, later scribes definitely parts of the Testimonium Flavianum.
Okay.
However, modern text critics have analyzed the passage to strip away the later Christian editions and uncover the authentic original core written by Josephus.
And what does that authentic core actually say?
Even stripped of the embellishments, Josephus still confirms that he was a historical figure, that he was a teacher who drew large crowds, that he was condemned to the cross by persecution of Jewish leaders, and that Christians named after him did not cease to exist after his death.
So, when we strip away the theology and just look at the raw data, what does this all mean for us today?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means that the foundation pillar of secular history and debate supernatural at the exact same time.
Sure.
But you cannot honestly claim that Nazareth that his persecution was very hostile secular forces definitively his existence, his crucifixion, and the undeniable fact that a radical movement exploded in his immediately.
And it didn't just explode, it endured. Facing intense persecution from the Roman Empire for nearly 3 centuries, Christianity spread like wildfire across the known world. Which brings us to the dilemma that we have to confront. When you look at all the historical
500 people cannot
data
share the
and the
exact
cultural
same
context, you
hallucination.
hit a profound
Clinically
philosophical
speaking,
wall.
the
Because the
psychological
implications
odds
are
of
entirely
500
different depending on the
brains
conclusion you arrive at.
spontaneously. A dead Jesus is comfortable. Dead historical teacher who gave some good moral advice to absolutely nothing. You can take his teachings, you can leave them, or you can ignore him completely.
But if you look at the historical mechanisms, if you conclude that the swoon theory is medically absurd, the stolen body theory is logistically impossible, the hallucination theory is psychiatrically unsound, and the early martyrs weren't lying, then you are forced to grapple with the reality of an empty tomb. And an empty tomb means you are no longer dealing with a dead teacher, you are dealing with a living king. And that shift takes us entirely out of the realm of historical curiosity and places it squarely into the realm of personal accountability. Man,
it really reorients how a person understands fabric, the nature of life, finality, death, and human purpose.
We have covered an immense amount of ground. We see the graphical risk of launching a resurrection game, very the execution process. We examine the cultural embarrassing yet authentic detail that women were an empty tomb.
We subjected the alternative theories to the harsh realities of first-century Roman military protocols and modern medical and psychiatric science. We analyzed the radical, inexplicable psychological transformation of a group of broken cowards into fearless martyrs.
And we anchored all of this in the corroborating hostile records of historians like Tacitus and Josephus.
But as we close this deep dive, the final synthesis is entirely up to you.
You have to look at that empty tomb in Jerusalem and answer the question for yourself. Was this the most perfectly executed lie in human history? Was it an unexplainable mass delusion? Or was it exactly what those early terrified followers confidently claimed it was?
The evidence is on the table, but the verdict is yours.
So, here is a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your week. Even if you view all of this entirely through a skeptical, secular lens, the historical reality remains untouched. A tiny, terrified group of uneducated fishermen in the first century became so deeply, unshakably convinced of an impossible event that they welcomed their own brutal executions.
Astounding.
And in doing so, they accidentally laid the foundation for a movement that completely outlasted the mighty Roman Empire itself. It is, without a doubt, one of the most profound mysteries of human psychology and history. What does it take for a single, unbelievable idea to completely rewrite the world?
It's a question that history still demands an answer to.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring. You know when you watch like a 2-minute movie trailer that makes a super dense psychological thriller look like a goofy comedy?
Oh yeah, totally. You completely lose the actual plot.
Right, you lose the truth when you only watch the fragments. So today we're taking a famously fragmented text, Matthew chapter 6, from the King James Version.
A classic.
Yeah. And our mission for this deep dive is to intentionally read all the verses cover to cover. We want to see what the trailer left out.
I love that because people usually know a famous line here or there from this text, but those lines kind of strips away the actual masterclass beneath the surface.
Exactly.
When you read it as one continuous thought, this massive overarching theme emerges. It's basically about human motivation, specifically the intense collision between our inward reality and our outward appearance.
Okay, let's unpack this. Think about the last time you posted a good deed online. Like, were you doing it for the cause or for the likes?
Right, for the clout.
Yeah, exactly. The text goes straight for the throat on this. It describes these hypocrites who literally sound a trumpet in the streets to announce they are giving to the poor. I mean, it's ancient clout chasing.
It really is. And, you know, the psychological mechanism hasn't changed in 2,000 years. The human brain just craves an audience.
Wow, yeah.
The text observes that if you perform for the crowd, well, they have their reward, meaning the applause is the end of the transaction.
So the transaction is just over right there.
Exactly. So the prescribed antidote here isn't just to, like, try and be a little more humble. It's radical secrecy. It says, when giving alms, don't even let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
And it says to wash your face when you're fasting or pray in a closet with the door shut. It's essentially forcing a complete detox from external validation.
Yeah, because it argues the true reward only comes from a source that sees what happens in the dark.
Right. So stripping away that performative layer forces a pretty brutal question. Like, if no one is watching, what do you actually value?
Which seamlessly shifts us from how we act to what we actually value. The text pushes you to evaluate your investments. Like, are you stockpiling treasures on earth, things vulnerable to moth and rust and thieves?
Or are you building up intangible treasures in heaven? It insists you can't serve both God and mammon or wealth. But there's a weird leap in logic right around here.
How so?
Well, the text suddenly starts talking about vision. It says, if your eye is single, your body is full of light, but if it's evil, you're full of darkness. I struggle to see how eyesight connects to serving two masters.
Oh, right. It's a metaphor for focus.
Yeah.
Because it says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Okay.
Think about trying to literally look at two completely different objects at the exact same time. Your vision blurs, right? You get dizzy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If your loyalties are split between external wealth and internal values, you experience that same dizzying darkness and confusion in your life. A single eye just means having one unified, uncompromising focus.
And that singular aim is what brings clarity. But, committing to that singular higher focus immediately triggers a very human panic.
Absolutely. The survival instinct kicks in.
Right. If I'm not obsessing over my earthly wealth or my savings account, how do I survive? How do I eat? Which leads right into the final station about worry.
And this is the profound psychological payoff of reading this all in sequence. The antidote to divided loyalty is also the antidote to anxiety.
Wait, really? How does it connect those two?
Well, if you aren't obsessing over earthly treasures, you're freed from the anxiety of losing them. The text points to nature. It mentions the fowls of the air. They don't stockpile food in barns, yet they eat.
And the lilies of the field. Right. They don't hustle or toil, but they're dressed better than King Solomon in all his glory.
Exactly.
It's poetic, sure, but demanding that you take no thought for the morrow feels almost impossible. Are we really supposed to just stop worrying about tomorrow's problems?
It's not about ignoring reality. It's a brutal prioritization of your mental energy. The text concludes with, sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof.
Meaning today has enough problems of its own.
Precisely. By seeking the higher kingdom first, you accept that today has enough challenges to handle. Stressing over an uncontrollable future is just wasted energy.
So by sticking to our mission to read all the verses, we didn't just get a list of ancient rules. We uncovered an entire psychological roadmap.
Yeah, a brilliant one. It takes you from cutting out the noise of public validation to unifying your core focus to finally breaking the cycle of anxiety.
It's a surprisingly sharp tool for modern information overload.
It really is. It forces you to look at your own life and ask what genuinely drives you when the audience disappears.
And speaking of that anxiety, here's something to chew on. If sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, how much of your current daily stress is just you borrowing trouble from a tomorrow that hasn't even arrived? Think about that the next time you're tempted to judge a situation based on a tiny fragment instead of taking the time to...
Matthew 5. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today as we spend time in the Word. Today, we are opening our hearts to one of the most profound, revolutionary teachings ever recorded, the Sermon on the Mount. Turn with me to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. Let's listen together. And seeing the multitudes, to a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth, and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they will hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye, when men shall revile you, and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely, for my sake. Rejoice, and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. Salt and light, ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out, and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle, and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. The fulfillment of the law. Think not that I am come to destroy the law, or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Deeper teachings on the heart. Ye have heard that it was said of them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment, and whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hell fire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, while thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence, till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. Ye have heard that he said it of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. It hath been said, Whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. Again, ye have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto the Lord thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. But let your communication be, Yea, yea, nay, nay, for whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil. Eye for an eye, and loving enemies. Ye have heard that it hath been said, An eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with them twain. Give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn not thou away. Ye have heard that it hath been said, Thou shalt love thy neighbor, and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun